I'm Arlene Herson, and I'm glad that you could join me this evening because my guest is a woman whose life started out as a horror story, but fortunately has a fairy tale ending. She is a superstar, star of her own television series, headliner with a fabulous nightclub act in Los Angeles and Atlantic City, author, poet, beautiful, with a figure most women would die for. She first captured the public's attention as Chrissy, the ditzy blonde on Three's Company. The public loved her. But in private, Suzanne Summers was the daughter of an alcoholic father, a secret she kept for many years. Her childhood, she says, was robbed by a terrible and painful disease that nobody ever wanted to talk about. Now she is not only talking about it, she has also written a book about it. In her book, Keeping Secrets, Suzanne Summers tells us about her life, shares with us her intimate secrets, and because of her courage and honesty is helping millions of others who find themselves in a similar situation. An incredible woman, an incredible life, and an incredible career. My guest is Suzanne Summers. She'll be with us right after these messages, so please stay right there.
In America, you are not required to offer food to the hungry or shelter to the homeless. There is no ordinance forcing you to visit the lonely. In fact, nowhere in the Constitution does it say you have to provide anything for anybody. Thank you for all you've given. Imagine what more could do.
Kathy died real suddenly from a brain aneurysm. She was 29 years old. There was no warning. Organ donation was a very painful decision to make on my own. I wish we'd talked about it because I didn't know if I was doing the right thing. We didn't have that discussion because we thought we were young. We thought we had a lot of time, but we didn't.
Who are you?
Seymour Smoke, smoke detector. And I see more smoke coming from that toaster.
Thanks for warning us, Seymour.
I hate smoke. So whenever I see it, I make this noise to warn you. Because where there's smoke, there may be fire.
Be cool about fire safety.
Be cool.
I'm Arlene Herson, and we're back with my very special guest, Suzanne Summers, here in her hotel at Morgan's in New York City. Thank you for taking the time from your busy schedule to talk to us.
My pleasure.
You know, I have to say, I feel, as I mentioned to you, that I spent the weekend with you. You have had some wonderful things happen to you, but you've also had a lot of bad things happen to you. In reading your book, Keeping Secrets, which I have a copy of here, you know, I was so touched. In the end, I must tell you, I cried. Now, I hear you cried a lot writing the book. Why did you decide to go public with your private life?
Well, you know, it was a very painful thing to write, but also a very cathartic experience for me. And when I finished, because I didn't know when I was writing, if I was writing a book or not. It was just, once I started, I couldn't stop. And probably about halfway through, I realized this is turning out to be a book. But I realized that if there had been a book like this for me when I was growing up, or a young adult, or had I not figured it out and in my life today, at any phase in my life, how much help it would have been, because when you grow up in a situation like this, in any kind of family dysfunction, mine was alcoholism of my father's, you are affected by it, And I realized that when I was going through it, I just figured that we were the only ones. We kept the secret so tight that I never discussed it with anyone, and I didn't think anyone lived a crazy life like I did.
Well, you know, a crazy life, you also say that you really didn't think very much of yourself. When we see you on the stage today, there's Suzanne Summers. You not only look beautiful, you exude confidence. It looks like, hey, I think I'm great. But in the book, you say you didn't think you were so great,
No.
that you really had a very low esteem. In those days, what did you think was going to happen to Suzanne Summers, and what would you have settled for?
Well, I settled for very little. If it is so embarrassing, it's so humiliating, and there's so much shame attached to having your father be the town drunk. You don't talk about it to anybody, but you know that they're laughing behind your back, and his shame becomes your shame. His shame becomes the whole family's shame. You all take it on. I remember my mother used to always tell me, stand up straight, Suzanne, stomach out, chest out, stomach in. And yet I'd look at her, and her head was always stooped. And when I would look at pictures of her as a young woman, she stood very proud and happy. But as the disease took hold of her, and she was not an alcoholic, but as a co-addict, living with an alcoholic, it just took her esteem away till she became kind of an introverted within kind of person. That behavior of hers embarrassed me when I was growing up. I wished my mother would be more outgoing, more forceful like the other mothers. So I expected very little from life. I had very, very low self-esteem because of the fact that I figured everybody was laughing at us and that we deserved to be laughed at. And because as a daughter of an alcoholic, I was told from a very early age I was nothing, I was worthless, I was a zero. That one of my father's things when he was drunk, he would say, "You're nothing," and he would say it. I don't even want to. It's so ugly the way he said. I mean, it would be with all that venom that an alcoholic can muster up. I believed him, and then it took me most of my life to realize he didn't think that I was nothing. That was the disease, all his own self-loathing. He turned outward towards other people. He thought he was nothing, so therefore he told us we were nothing, and we believed it. That's the disease. That's the crazy part. Each one in the family, we weren't sick to start out with, but we became sick. We all played a part in the disease because we were addicted to the addict, and that's the puzzling thing.
You know, it's interesting because your family was so much a part of your whole life growing up, of the disease. You were all affected by it.
Right.
There were 6 members of your family.
Right.
4 members were alcoholics.
Right.
How did they feel about you going public with this, about telling not only about your experience, but about theirs?
Well, at first they freaked. I gave it to them because I wanted their permission and their blessing before I sought a publisher. And my mother, I knew, I gave them all a copy of the manuscript. And I felt an anguish that night that I would never like to experience again. I felt like a traitor. I felt that I had come face to face with what I was doing that night. And of course, a couple of days later, my mother called me in tears and she said, "How could you do this to us?" And I said, "I won't do it. I will not seek a publisher unless I get a blessing and permission from everyone. One veto ends the whole project." I said, "But, you know, there are 16 grandchildren in our family. When everyone stopped drinking, which they all are in the recovery process and have been for about a decade now, they're all about 10 years old, so they don't remember what it looked like, what it sounded like, what we felt like, and they especially don't remember that it almost killed each and every one of us, including my mother and I who weren't drinkers. I feel that I was very close to suicide myself." I said, "They're all in college now, these grandchildren. They're starting to drink socially." I said, "It is so unfair of us, at least not to let them read it, because they're walking into a minefield. They're fraternity parties and toga parties and beer parties. Nobody's ever told them, hey, just know your grandfather started out the same way. Just know your mother started out the same way, or your father. They all started out to be the life of the party and have fun." I said, you know, this disease passes from generation to generation unless the cycle is stopped, unless the next generation gets the information. I said, "So if you don't want to share it with the world, I can understand that, but I feel that we owe it to our children to let them know the real story." Well, after they digested that for a while, each one of them, one by one, came back to me and they said, you know, we understand what you're trying to do, and we trust you that you'll do it right, and we give you our blessing. And it was a very brave thing for them to do because they aren't public people.
Very brave, and I want to say thank you to your family because you have done so much good for so many people, and not just people of alcoholic families, but people really who will get courage from your story. And we're going to talk more about the story after we take this break.
Thank you.
We're speaking with Suzanne Summers. We'll be right back. Please stay right there.
Chemistry class led me to a life of crime. I catch murderers, rapists, and thieves with a microscope. Help your daughter become a scientist. Instead of a tea set, get her a chemistry set. Look at the boring job I got from being a science nerd. Expect the best from a girl. That's what you'll get.
This doesn't scare you. Just wait.
The doctor will see you now.
One night a year ago, Vanessa got high with some guy and forgot everything she learned about preventing AIDS. Now her life is the horror show. AIDS. Another way drugs can kill.
Hi, Puddin'.
Oh, you're so welcome, because I don't have shoes.
Oh, you are gorgeous. Noreen. Talk to me.
If you don't stop someone from driving drunk, who will?
Come on, talk to me.
Do whatever it takes.
Come on, you can do it.
We're back with my very special guest, Suzanne Summers. We were speaking about your family sharing their secrets and their problems, which have turned out really to be victories.
Right.
You are a survivor, but you were also a victim. I mean, so many things happened to you in reading this book. I can't believe that we're here today speaking to you.
Neither can I.
You know, and incredible, but the things that happened to you, also, a lot of things that happened were unfair. I mean, that you had no control of. For instance, even to go way back, alcoholic father, teenage pregnancy, unhappy marriage. But the teenage pregnancy, in reading your book, I was astounded. You were a good girl.
Yes.
You really were. You always wanted to be a good girl.
Right.
You became pregnant by accident. I mean, you never really, as they say, went all the way.
No. I'm the Immaculate Conception.
But Suzanne, I mean, that's incredible. What happened?
Believe me, no one was more surprised than I. You know, I mean, this has come up. I was almost reluctant to put this in the book, but it was such an astounding thing to me. Obviously, we got very close. It's just, you know what it was like back then. It was important to this whole business of virginity and your wedding night and all that. I mean, everything has changed now and everything is different, but that was then, you know, 20 years ago, and things were different. And I just told my son he's a great swimmer. You figure it out.
Okay, you know, I heard it could happen. We all heard it could happen, and for those guys that tell you girls, hey, it can't happen, it can happen.
Call me.
Okay, but you know what happened? You got this wonderful child, this wonderful, and you grew up together. His name is Bruce. I mean, it really seems, in reading about your relationship, I thought, gee, what a lucky boy.
And I even think if there's some force that is at work in the universe, whatever that's all about, he was sent to me because I think if I hadn't had him, I had many thoughts at that time of this world would be better off without me. But whenever I would think that thought, I'd look at him, and he was so trusting, and I'd think that would be so selfish to him. And I had promised him when he was born that I'd make a good life for him. So I think that he was sent to me to keep me alive, and so my job was then to make a good life for him.
Well, you know, interestingly enough, he was sent to you to keep you alive, and in some ways your life really was saved. You said because he almost lost his life. He was in an accident and hit by a car and was almost killed.
Right.
Because of him almost being killed, your life was saved.
Right. And I must give credit to my first husband, who walked into a minefield with me. That was a marriage doomed to never work because he was marrying a child of an alcoholic. But he recommended that, because my son was having these terrible nightmares, he recommended that I go to therapy. And I said, well, I can't afford therapy. And he said, go to the community mental health center. And after a year of going to the community mental health center, this woman said, he's fine now. This is the child. He's fine. He's no longer having nightmares. He's very well adjusted. He's okay. He doesn't have to come anymore, but you, I want you to stay. And I said, me? Why? She said, you have the lowest self-esteem of anybody I've ever met. I can't even relate to who I was 20 years ago. It was difficult to get back in that thought process of feeling that everyone was better than me, that good things didn't happen to people like me, that I was not as good as anybody. But I can remember when I forced myself to that thought process that was in me, and it just became ingrained as a child. And through this woman that I worked with, and because she started pointing out the behavioral patterns that I had and making me see my worth as a human being. It doesn't sound like a big deal, but it was a series of little small miracles that, yeah, I am a good person, and yes, I do have talent, and things that I had not allowed myself to think about myself. And after a number of years, she said, I want you to stop coming. And I said, why? I have more questions. I have more to learn. She said, I want you to go live your life now. Take what we've learned and go apply it to your life. You know, that says a lot to say about the type of therapy I was in. If I were paying a high-priced therapist, I wonder if that therapist would have let me go. Because it was the community mental health center, she's only getting $1 a visit, they had to reach a point where they let you go. But when she did let me go, I was ready.
Well, but you were with her for a long time.
I was with her for a long time.
And you really changed so much. Your life changed so much. Because when you started going to her, and you know, I think everybody should read the book, Keeping Secrets, by the way. We're going to speak some more about it, but it's an incredible book. But when you started going to her, I mean, you had no money.
Right.
You really had no job to speak of. You had a little baby that you were taking care of. You had your own apartment. You really, I mean, I just wonder, that was the kind of thing that we would say today would drive people to drink.
Yeah.
Now, we know the story.
Right.
Did you ever think about drowning your sorrows? Did you ever think, hey, you know, I can take a drink and forget about this because that's what other members of your family did?
That's always the puzzle to me. During that time, I always had a bottle of wine around the house in case someone was coming for dinner. It never entered my mind to have a drink when I felt bad. So I don't know if I carry the genes or not. You know, so far the blade has passed over my head, but I feel that it's something that I'm vigilant about. My mother isn't an alcoholic. Maybe I inherited her genes. I don't know. But it never occurred to me.
Well, the genes that you did inherit. You know, we're going to take a break, but I want to talk about all the positive things that are happened to you now, and all the
including the murder that just happened down the street there. Was that a gun that went off?
Well, when you're in New York City, we heard it.
Yeah, right.
But good things are happening in this room.
That's true.
We're going to take a break and talk about it. We're speaking with Suzanne Summers. We'll be right back after these messages. Please stay right there.
Be cool about fire safety.
Do you know how to escape from your home if there's a fire? You gotta have a plan. They didn't have a plan, but these people do.
Okay, in case of a fire, you and your sister are to go out this door.
Or we can always go out that way. We have 2 exits, okay?
And remember, practice makes perfect. So tell your parents, we gotta have a plan.
Be cool about fire safety. Be cool.
They want to get me, I'm gonna be ready to get them.
They just shoot. They don't care who gets in the way.
I want to be respected. This gets me respect, know what I'm saying?
I'm afraid to walk to school, okay?
Yeah, I might die. Everybody dies.
Kids shooting, kids getting shot. They're all victims of gun violence. The killing won't stop unless you help stop it. Call 1-800-WE-PREVENT for free information. Not one more lost life. Not one more grieving family. Not one more.
I don't want to die.
I'm Arlene Herson, and my guest is Suzanne Summers. Yeah, we were speaking just before the break of your first marriage, and you said it didn't work because you were the daughter of an alcoholic father. Putting the blame on yourself. Mm-hmm. Actually, in reading your book, it didn't work because it didn't work. It probably wouldn't have worked regardless. He wasn't the right man for you. The right man for you is here today.
Yes.
His name is Alan Hamill.
Right.
Actually, you met him years ago. You met him when you were broke during a very difficult period of your time. You had no job, really. You met him because he was the star of his own show. He was a star then. You came to do the anniversary game. Fired the first time you went on. We'll talk about that in a minute. But however, you know, here he was. Look, he's still very beautiful and handsome and sexy 20 years later, but he was a married man.
Right.
Now, what made you stick out that relationship, and what made you think it would work?
Well, on our first date, I didn't realize that he was married, and I really fell in love our first date. Truly. Yeah, there was just that feeling, whatever that is. Because I had such low self-esteem when I discovered that he was married, were it today, I would say, thank you very much. When you get unentangled, call me up. It's really been nice. Goodbye. I think I would say that. It was a great date, though, I must say. But because of who I was then, I subconsciously made a choice that I wasn't good enough to be number one anyway, and that nothing would ever come of this relationship. And he was working in San Francisco. His wife was in Los Angeles. If I could just see him from time to time when he was in San Francisco, that would be enough for me. It was myself conning myself, but I was very good at that, because one of the things that children of alcoholics do is act as if everything is okay all the time. And so I accepted this and acted as if that this was very acceptable to me. Never brought up marriage for years. Never even brought up that I loved him for years. I was afraid to tell him that I loved him for a fear that he would leave me. But that, again, is my low self-esteem. Today, I would think, you tell someone you love them, it can be nothing but flattering. But I truly worried that he would leave.
That's interesting. And he, you know, maybe he would have at that time. Actually, you stuck out. The two of you are terrific together.
Yeah.
You've been together a long time, married now. You say he's your best friend, he's your manager.
Yeah.
But I have to say, he's the one that got the bad press. When you were on Three's Company, I mean, here you were, you finally made it. I mean, all the things that happened to you in your life that were bad, now good things were happening. Star of one of the biggest sitcoms ever, Three's Company. Now, the story went that it was because of him, that he went in and asked for too much money. I think it was $150,000 per episode, and they offered you $35,000 per episode, which isn't chopped liver.
Yeah, really. The gardener's daughter, right?
Okay. and that the producer said, "Go take a walk." Is that really what happened?
No. That's what went in the press, but you know, my contract was up, and it's standard to renegotiate a contract. I wanted more freedom as an actress. I wanted to go further. I felt that the character on Three's Company had a very similar soul to Edith Bunker. And I remember when Edith Bunker was raped, that there was a national consciousness about it and an outrage, and I felt that people felt that protective about the Chrissy character. She was so naive and so pure. I don't know if I meant for her to be raped, but something traumatic, so that it would give the character an opportunity to get more depth. And they really didn't want to tamper with it, and I wanted to go into the entertainment field. And so because of all those things, if I couldn't grow anymore and I wanted to go in this direction, in a fit of pique, my husband said, well, then give her $150,000 an episode. It just got out of hand that way, and it's too bad it ended because it had been so wonderful.
Well, it was wonderful.
Yeah.
And you and John Ritter and Joyce DeWitt seem to have had a wonderful relationship on stage and off stage. You were friends.
We did.
Are you talking today?
I've never seen them since, which is not an unusual thing in a television show. You go your separate ways. But if I saw them, I'd feel very good about seeing them.
And if you had it to do over again, would you have stayed on the show?
No, I wouldn't. I cannot even describe what it's like to be an entertainer. You know, all those years as a little girl when I'd sit in the closet and fantasize about being a star or being on Broadway and all of that, had to do with standing on a stage in front of people. And I get a thrill every night I walk on that stage. I feel it's a privilege. I really look forward to performing all the time. And if I had stayed with Three's Company, I would not have been able to make that move. And also, you know, I'm doing a series now called She's the Sheriff, which I'm enjoying, so I have the best of both worlds now. Three's Company had its reason, had its point, but you have to move on in life.
Yeah, it's very true. But seeing you on the stage, actually this weekend you'll be at Caesars.
Right.
You headline in Las Vegas all the time. You are incredible on the stage. I mean, I have seen your nightclub act.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, wow. I mean, not only do you look fabulous, but you sound fabulous. You've got an incredible voice.
Thank you.
I mean, but your terrible childhood, hiding in closets and really feeling terrible about yourself, where did you learn to do all this? I mean, how did you get such a dynamite act?
You know what I think? I think dreams are so potent. I think those dreams you have as a kid is not wasted time. I think all that daydreaming and all that fantasizing for protection, for survival that I did was the process of working within. I would see myself on stage and I knew exactly who I wanted to be from the moment I walked onto my first stage. I knew what it was I wanted to accomplish. It's taken me, I'm still a baby in the biz, it's taken me 8 years, but I really have a wonderful rapport with the people, which is what I wanted.
Yeah, well, you know, it's true. I have to see you on stage, in person, you have a wonderful rapport, and actually in your books you have a wonderful rapport. I just want to read something from the back of this book before we end, because it touched me. And I mean, I don't remember a book touching me so much as yours has. But
my goodness.
It says here from the back of the book, I wrote this book for all of us who fell asleep in class, who hid in our closets, who couldn't form friendships, who silently hated ourselves. I wrote this book for all of us who were violent when violence was something we hated. All of us who lied, who kept secrets, who blamed ourselves, who made excuses, covered up, created crisis, and told ourselves stories to protect the terrible reality we lived with. Well, you wrote the book for those kind of people, but you also wrote it for people like me. It has such courage in it. It has such honesty in it. And it gives people such encouragement out there. You're a wonderful symbol.
Thank you.
And I can't thank you enough for spending some time with us.
Well, I've had a wonderful time. This is great. Thanks so much.
Oh, well, thank you very much. It's really been an absolute delight.
Thank you.
We've been speaking with Suzanne Summers, and please stay with us. We'll be right back after these messages.
So how's your cousin's new car?
Oh, yeah, my cousin's new car.
Yeah.
He picked it up last week.
All right.
Big celebration.
Yeah?
And I felt like a jerk telling him he should take a taxi home because he had one too many.
But you did.
No, I didn't.
What happened?
Totaled.
What?
Yeah, and him with it.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
Take the keys. Call a cab. Take a stand. Friends don't let friends drive drunk.
I'm Arlene Herson, and I hope that you've enjoyed the time that we spent here with Suzanne Summers. I know that I certainly have. She's an incredible person, not only a fabulous actress and entertainer, but also an incredible author. Her book, Keeping Secrets, is really something special and something I think everybody should read. She really is an incredible person. And I hope that you've enjoyed the time we've spent here, and I hope that you will also join us again next week. Meantime, good night. Hope to see you then.